ain't gonna lie. Yesterday was one of the best days of my life. Although Mama PSP gave me a hard time, I had 4 margaritas. I have not one, not two, not three, but 4 margaritas. Could have had and a couple of them angry orchards as well. To quote my goat, Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Dallas Cowboys traded Micah Parsons, their all-pro defensive end and linebacker, to the Green Bay Packers in exchange for 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark, a defensive tackle. This reminds me of just seeing the Cowboys fans, the pain, the look on their face. Y'all know me, and we all know we love ourselves from South Park. Champ and I, one of our favorite characters, Eric Cartman, who we consider a babyface. Remember the episode in which near the end, Scott Tenorman was crying, and then Cartman was licking the tears of Scott Tenorman's face, enjoying. That's exactly how I was feeling looking at the Dallas Cowboys. That is the perfect example of how I was feeling the other day. I was licking the tears off the Dallas Cowboys' face just to see the pain and anguish from them because I cannot stand Cowboy fans. Sorry, Mama Champ. I got love for you because, hell, you did a wonderful job raising a wonderful son. But what you put Champ through by making him watch them Dallas Cowboy games, that is criminal of itself. I digress. But, see, they traded Micah Parsons. Jerry Jones, I saw him on Stephen A. Smith's show. He said we got 3 more years of Micah Parsons. Now, look, my thing is with Jerry, I understand to Flash's point because he thinks this is actually a good thing for Dallas because of the picks. And we all know Dallas, they're known for drafting talent. Still in all, they've had talent throughout that time. From Jason Witten, Des Bryant, Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Ty Smith, Zach Martin, Travis Frederick. Some of them are going to Canton. And some of them already, and some of them, a lot of them are going to be on the Dallas Cowboys Ring of Honor. My thing with Jerry is, Jerry, this is on you, bro. You did this. Your ego got in the way because you kept thinking all big and bad. You didn't even bring in Micah Parsons' agent. Now, look, of course, you don't have to worry. You cleared with this trade. I think, Champ, they saved up $24 million in cap space. So that's kind of good for the Dallas Cowboys. But at the same time, you traded 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. If you had any indication you were going to trade Micah Parsons, wouldn't you have done it before the draft? That way you could have gotten yourself a little bit more draft compensation, a little bit more something. But Jerry decided to wait on the last minute. He traded Micah Parsons just a week before the Dallas Cowboys season opener against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I don't want to hear any comparisons of the Micah Parsons trade as the Herschel Walker trade. Because to your point, Chap, you touched on it. You sent me the video and everything. As always, eloquent job as you normally do, as I always call you, the Al Roker of journalism. Pastor Champ. Dallas Cowboys, man, with Jerry Jones. I've said this and I've said this before. Until Jerry Jones is no longer the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, this is where the Dallas Cowboys will be. Yeah, they're going to get some players. We do expect them to get some players. Who knows? They're probably going to tank the rest of the season, probably try to get themselves Arch Manning or some of these top quarterback prospects in the 2026 NFL draft. And who knows? They're going to get themselves some players. Still in all, how's that resulted you in getting to Super Bowls, winning a Super Bowl, getting to a Super Bowl, or even getting to a conference championship game? since the 95-96 season. Zero. And you've had numerous seasons to actually been to a conference championship game. 2007, the year when they lost to the New York Giants in the divisional round, when Tony Romo threw the late interception, to which Terrell Owens cried and said, "That's my quarterback, that's my teammate." And Tony Romo and Jason Witten received a lot of flack because they were in Mexico, correct me if I'm wrong, champ, before that playoff game. Yes, they had a chance in 2014, the controversial Des Bryant play, the catch that wasn't a catch. 2016, they had a chance. 2018, 2022, 2023, when the Dallas Cowboys had the number 2 seed in the NFC, only the San Francisco 49ers had the higher seed at that time. You had Dak Prescott playing statistically his best year of his season, was the runner-up for league MVP. Dallas Cowboys, to me, they've maxed out. Because it doesn't matter with all these draft picks or whatever. They're going to draft a bunch of players. We expect that. But talent alone doesn't win you a championship. You need to have culture. You need to have structure. You need to have cohesion. And to lose Micah Parsons, how's this going to help Dallas? Because the defense, they were struggling with Micah as far as with the run. Now without him. And plus, by the way, Stephen A. Smith did mention David Mugoleta, who is the agent of Micah Parsons. He's also the same agent who represents George Pickens. Mm-hmm. So you got to be mindful and careful of that if you're Jerry Jones. And did they even inform Jerry? Did Jerry and Steven, did they even inform Micah Parsons that he was going to be traded?
Yeah, he was excited to be traded, from my knowledge.
Yeah,
he was excited to be traded.
He posted the video. He posted the video.
Oh, and he got his bag. 4-year, $188 million, $47 million per year, making him the highest non-paid QB in the NFL. And if you look at that, he's making more money than some of the highest paid quarterbacks, including Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes. So Geno Smith got no problem with it. But champ, I saw Micah Parsons laying on that table, on the trainer's table, and I saw him eating some nachos. Micah wasn't playing. He wasn't playing. Jerry, this is on you, bro. You could have handled this a hell of a lot professionally. You really think Micah wanted to be traded in the beginning? He would have loved to finish his career with the Dallas Cowboys, I'm sure. But you handled it unprofessionally by allowing your ego to get in the way. You decided not to bring in his agent. So, of course, Micah's going to take it as disrespect because his agent was responsible, because his agent plays a big role in that. Jerry, this is on you, bro. This is on you. Mama Champ right now, Lord knows what Mama Champ is going through right now. She's either throwing up right now. She's either snatching the TV, throwing it out the damn window. She's either on her 3rd bottle of Hennessy or some wine right now.
Thank God, my little drink.
Well, thank God she got a son, and thank God she got a son like you, and thank God she has a beautiful daughter and a sister like his that you have as well, champ. Because I cannot tell you what Mama Champ and Cowboys fans are dealing with, man. I cannot put it into perspective. As for me, I'm happy because again, I thought, oh my God, we weren't going to take care of Terry. And by the way, we'll talk about Terry McLaurin later on the show. Don't forget that. We're going to talk about Terry McLaurin. But for Dallas Cowboy fans, hey man, I'm loving this. Jerry Jones keeps putting his foot in his mouth. Jerry Jones, and I've said it before, BRF, and I've said it before, champ. The worst thing that ever happened to the Dallas Cowboys organization is when Jerry moved on from Jimmy Johnson, got Barry Switzer. win the Super Bowl, because that gave Jerry Jones the validation. I don't need a great GM. I don't need a great head coach. I don't need anything else. I'm going to do it my way. Jerry's been doing it his way. He hasn't evolved. He hasn't gotten ahead with the times. You've used the term, champ, the definition of insanity, doing something more than once. And I disagree respectfully with Flash, even though some people may say the Cowboys may win, the Packers won this one. Because with the Packers, look at what they've done with players that they've gotten in their prime. Look at what they did with Reggie White, who ended up winning Defensive Player of the Year, who ended up winning a Super Bowl for the Green Bay Packers. Look what happened with Charles Woodson. And now look what you're doing with Micah Parsons, who is 26 years old, still at the prime of his career, one of the preeminent defensive players in the NFL. And Green Bay, one thing we know about Green Bay, unlike Dallas, champ, small market, no distractions as much. They're all about titles. They're all about winning. Micah no longer has to worry about the star in the helmet, the constant distractions, and everything else. Yes, Dallas, they're going to find a way to accumulate talent. But as long as Jerry Jones running the show, and as long as he continuously hires people, yes, men, that he likes, this is where the Dallas Cowboys will be. They ain't changing. They're not changing. They're not going to go any farther as long as Jerry Jones is running the show. I'm happy because I'm a Commanders fan. I don't have to deal with Micah Parsons. And by the way, we got the Cowboys versus the Packers. And there was a kind of indication that Micah Parsons was kind of going to Green Bay. He's pretty tight with Jordan Love. He had him on his podcast.
Mm-hmm. You most certainly did.
So, big fella, undisputed world champ. I'm quite sure you and Mama Champ, y'all probably had to pray. Y'all probably had to do something, everything just to comfort her, because you've told the audience on this pod, Jerry is breaking your mother's heart.
I'll say this. She wasn't very disappointed about the trade. She kind of liked the trade because we get the picks and she knows Jerry's going to get some talent, But, I don't fight mom. Mom, she has her own way of looking at things. And, she's a Cowboys fan. She's been a Cowboys fan since start back, I would say. So mom's a diehard fan. But I will say this. There's a reason why pass rushers, especially the caliber of Micah Parsons, don't get traded in their prime. Funny story, going to the NFC East. Did you know the Eli Manning trade, right? Did you know who they wanted originally? They wanted a first, a second, and a fifth, and they wanted Usi Umenyiora. And Ernie Accorsi, one of the best general managers of all time, made it of no uncertain terms, said, no, you will not get Usi Umenyiora. Mind you, Usi Umenyiora wasn't even starting the way he was going to start, and he hadn't even came into his own as of yet in 2004. He hadn't even came into his own. And as I'm looking at it, he had just came into the league the year before. So he was on the bench at that point. So even Ernie Accorsi looked at, and he was a second-round pick, by the way. Even Ernie Accorsi recognized the power of a pass rusher. And granted, they got their star pass rusher anyway in the form of Sean Merriman, who had a lot of brilliant years, who lights out. He was great for a brief period of time.
06, definitely.
Yes. So he was, for a brief period of time, he's one of the scariest defensive players in the league. But Ernie Accorsi understood, hey, I'm not going to give you a potential pass rushing star. And let me give you some stats, if you will. Let me go into my journalistic bag. Here's a list of pass rushers that have been traded at their prime. Fred Dean from the San Diego Chargers. Mm-hmm. He got traded to the San Francisco 49ers in the early 80s. You know what happened? He ended up being one of the anchors for that defense and won 2 Super Bowls with them. Okay. Kevin Green, Hall of Famer, left the Los Angeles Rams when they during their first iteration in Los Angeles, left the Los Angeles Rams, ended up joining the Pittsburgh Steelers. By the time 1995 was there, they had made the Super Bowl. The only thing that kept them from a Super Bowl ring was Neil O'Donnell and that fixed game. We all know, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the 95 Super Bowl with Dallas versus Pittsburgh Steelers when Neil O'Donnell threw it right to Larry Brown twice. Yeah, that's what I call the fixed game. The fix was already in. Charles Haley got traded 1992. Helped build the Dallas Cowboy dynasty. Won 3 Super Bowls. Khalil Mack, the last great pass rusher that we saw get traded. Traded to the Chicago Bears. They instantly made the playoffs. Him and Raekwon Smith, before he was traded to the Baltimore Ravens, was one of the most scariest duos in the league.
Number 1 defense in the NFL at that time.
Yes. Ted Hendricks, traded to the Oakland Raiders. Won 3 Super Bowls with the Oakland Raiders. This one hits on home, BRF. John Abraham got traded from the Jets to the Falcons. Do you realize how long it took them to replace John Abraham in New York? Yeah.
It took them a while.
Jared Allen left the Kansas City Chiefs in free agency. Ended up going to the Minnesota Vikings. Do y'all remember that defensive line that they had? They had the Williams wall, Kevin Williams and Sam Williams, and Pat Williams, excuse me. They had Ray Edwards and Jared Allen. They became one of the scariest defenses in the league. There is a reason why you do not hear about these primary pass rushers leaving franchises. You hear about great running backs getting traded all the time. We've seen it throughout history. We've seen one of the greatest running backs of all time get traded. Eric Dickerson got traded twice. I'm going to say that again. Eric Dickerson got traded twice. And he was one of the best running backs in history. He got traded and they brought in Greg Bell. Although he was no Eric Dickerson, he was great for a few brief years. So it's easier to trade great running backs and get some value for them back than for you to get rid of a pass rusher. The thing about Khalil Mack being traded, it wasn't until they got Max Crosby that they got a perennial pass rusher back. And you saw what happened. They learned their lesson and kept them locked in. There's a reason why you don't hear about these great pass rushers getting traded, especially in their prime. I bring up another valid point. As much as people talk about Terrell Davis on the offensive side of the ball that was able to bring John Elway 2 championships, do you know one of the main reasons why they was able to get another championship? They were able to get those 2 championships in Denver? A guy by the name of Neil Smith, who was Derek Thomas's sack partner in Kansas City. He played a big part in John Elway winning those 2 championships. As a matter of fact, he took less money so they could get Neil Smith. I will keep saying it over and over. There's a reason why you don't hear about great pass rushers, especially generational pass rushers, getting traded in their prime or leaving teams in their prime. There's a reason why. They're few and far in between. You hear about great running backs getting traded. You hear about wide receivers getting traded. You hear about monster offensive line getting traded. You hear about defensive backs being traded. Even linebackers getting traded. But that generational pass rusher that you know can change a game, that you have to game plan for, there's a reason why they're few and far in between when they get traded, why they don't get traded. Can you imagine this trade right here? Micah Parsons leaving the Dallas Cowboys. That is equivalent to if Kansas City had traded Derek Thomas in his prime. That's what this is equivalent to. Because if you really look at the game that they have, they're very similar to Derek Thomas. I know people say Lawrence Taylor, but Lawrence Taylor was one of a kind. I would say Derek Thomas. So there's a reason why these air specialty type players don't get traded in their prime. It's hard to replace them. Very, very hard. Now, if he had traded Micah Parsons before the draft, I would have applauded him because guess what?
More draft compensation.
More draft compensation. And guess what? You could have replaced one Nittany Lion with another Nittany Lion, with another one Penn State running back with another, because you would have had a chance to get Abdul Carter, who, remember, I was adamant in saying that I wanted to see him up in Cleveland. And
to pair up with Myles Garrett.
Yes, I was adamant about that. I'm going to give you another example. Did you see how quick the Cleveland Browns folded when it came to Myles Garrett? Did you see how quick the Pittsburgh Steelers folded to TJ Watt? There's a reason for that, ladies and gentlemen. These generational pass rushers, they're passing the ball a hell of a lot more. Not to mention, peep this. The Philadelphia Eagles gave everybody the blueprint on how to beat Patrick Mahomes. Rushing. Send your pass rushers at it. Especially when you got a generational player like a Micah Parsons that can draw double the attention.
Well, not just the Eagles, champ. Let's not forget the Buccaneers a couple of years ago in that Super Bowl. Because remember, when that Chiefs offensive line was decimated, as you often said, big fella, quarterback cannot throw behind his back.
No, the quarterback can't throw on his back. So, yeah, you do not trade that. Now, look, do I have faith that Jerry will get some players? Yeah. He's been a master at getting players. There's been a lot of generational players that he have drafted. He's drafted Zach Martin. He's drafted Tyron Smith. He's drafted a lot of those great offensive linemen.
Travis Frederick.
Yeah, Travis Frederick. He's drafted Zeke. He's drafted Dak Prescott. He drafted CeeDee Lamb. He's drafted Dez Bryant. He's drafted, DeMarcus Ware.
DeMarcus Ware, Jason Witten.
Sean Lee. Datna Wynn, Leroy Glover. He's drafted a lot of these great players. But the thing is, what separates these generational players from back in the 90s, they didn't have a proper coach in order to push them. Piggybacking on what the thing is this. I remember Flash touched on it last night. Yeah. People give Bill Parcells a hell of a lot of flack when he was in Dallas about him not winning the big one. But he made the playoffs and had the number one defense with Quincy Carter as his quarterback. I'm going to say that again. He had the number one defense in the league and made the playoffs with Quincy Carter as his quarterback. That's what you call coaching. What other coach do you think could have came in with Quincy Carter as his quarterback and made the playoffs?
Unless Mike Tomlin.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of guys who can come in and do that. So you need the proper coaching. You need somebody who's going to push these players and put these players in the right position. Do I trust Brian Schottenheimer? It remains to be seen. If God rests his soul, he had hired Brian Schottenheimer's father, Marty Schottenheimer. I'd have been praising him to the high heavens because Marty is going to get the best out of his players. I'm not sure what Brian Schottenheimer can do. Although he was one of the best offensive coordinators during that Mark Sanchez era, and they was tops in offense, it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to do. Now, credit to him, they're going to need the running game because that's the focal point of Brian Schottenheimer's offense, sort of like his father's, because they're going to have to play defense. You're going to have to play ball control. But without Micah forcing the offense into certain positions, how are you going to play that offense? Because we all know Schottenheimer's offense, Marty ball is based on field position, great defense, running the ball, rushing the passer. So now that your best pass rusher is gone, what are you going to do? I've been saying this ever since this morning when I woke up this morning. The first thing that Jerry needs to do is get on that phone before the weekend is out and call whoever he needs to call. And he needs to get Zadarius Smith on that phone right now. Zadarius Smith needs to be a Cowboy by Monday morning. He needs to be spending Labor Day in Dallas. I've been saying that all day long. Jerry, you just lost your best pass rusher. You need at least a utility pass rusher or somebody to put pressure on you. Go and get Jadarius Smith. Go and get it. With those draft picks, because mind you, free agency is next summer. I'm hopefully he has a contingency plan of getting a Ted Hendrickson because he's a free agent next summer. Hopefully he has a contingency plan. But you do not trade a generational pass rusher in his peak. Now, as far as the Green Bay Packers is concerned, people keep talking about Detroit, and I'm going to just be real. Detroit is not going to be Detroit this year.
Cam Newton, that's what Cam Newton mentioned. He actually thinks that the Cowboys won this trade, but I disagree. Sorry to cut you off, big fella, but when you lose both your coordinators in Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, and plus one of your preeminent defensive players, Aiden Hutchinson, who's coming off injury, that's going to be a concern. And plus, one of the teams that's in the rise is Chicago, because there's going to be a lot of expectations for them, particularly with Caleb Williams, particularly with Ben Johnson, and especially with the O-line that they heavily invested just to protect Caleb Williams, because last year he was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. Yes. He does run into a lot of sacks, but at the same time, Chicago ain't the greatest offensive line in the world, and you know that for a fact, big fella. But the thing is with Jerry, you are responsible for this, bro. You're not just the owner. You the GM. You also the president. You the one making football decisions. Like I said it before. And by the way, champ, do you know you have actually pronounced Micah Parsons' name perfectly? Because in the past, you used to call him Micah Parsons. I also forgot this. Jerry intentionally called him Michael. And I don't want to hear, well, Jerry Jones is 80-something years old. No, Jerry. You the owner. You the GM. You the one who cutting check. You the one who doing everything. You know that man very well. You know him like Champ's mother knows what Champ is doing 24/7. And my thing is, Jerry, you're not going to stay out the way. He's not going to stay out the way. He's going to draft some players. Make no mistake about it. We expect him to get the goods. But in the end, what is that going to help you as far as getting to a deep playoff run?
I'm going to be honest with you, and then I'll regress. Does he really need to stay out of the way, or does he need to bring in the proper coach? Because Al Davis, he stayed in the way for many years, but he had great coaches like Tom Flores, like John Madden, like Art Shell during his first iteration, and to a certain extent, John Gruden, his first 10 year in Oakland. He had good coaches in order to, mask the fact that, guess what? I'm all in and I'm meddling in every single affair. But these great coaches, they are able to push these players. Al Davis was the general manager and the president and everything on his team. But John Madden, Tom Flores, Art Shell, John Gruden, those guys were able to say, he was able to say to those guys, hey, look, I'm going to handle everything. But those were strong enough coaches to where even though Al Davis was breathing down their necks, they was able to handle that pressure and they was able to push those players. That's what Jerry needs. He needs a strong-minded coach who, regardless of him breathing down their damn necks, is going to be able to take the pressure of being a Cowboy and being able to push those players. Like I said, we've seen this before. We've seen a lot of meddling teams. I mean, we even saw it with, Dr. Bus. He was a meddler a little bit, But at the end of the day, the coaches that they had were so strong-minded that even when they were asked about, what do you feel about the meddling of your owner? They was able to brush it off, say, hey, I don't have anybody between me and the guy who's in charge. Anything that I have or that I need, as the late, great John Madden would say, I went straight to Al Davis. Those are the kind of coaches that you need. You need somebody who's strong-minded that can handle that pressure, that cowboy pressure, that can handle the NFC East, because it ain't getting no darn easier. Hell, because I'm gonna just be real. The Philadelphia Eagles ain't the only game in town anymore. You still got to worry about the Washington Commanders.
And now the Giants.
Yes. And now you have to worry about the Giants. Because guess what? I don't think people look, you still got to worry about Dexter Lawrence. You still have to worry about Kayvon Thibodeau. You have to worry about Brian Burns. Then on the offensive side of the ball, they have
you also forgot Abdul Carter.
Yes. They have some great pieces in place. So you're going to have to be able to not only handle that Cowboy pressure, but that NFC East pressure. I think that people would be a little bit easier on Jerry if he had that coach like a John Madden, like a Gruden, like a Tom Flores or an Art Shell. Unfortunately, he has not brought the right coach in order to manage those talents. I think he should have stuck with Wade Phillips. I think Wade Phillips eventually could have gotten them to where they needed to be, considering that he took the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs twice with Doug Flutie. So I'm just going to be honest. He needs to bring in the right coach that's strong-minded. You ain't necessarily got to be a Jimmy Johnson or a Bill Parcells. You have to be strong-minded enough in order to handle that Cowboy pressure, that Cowboy media, to be in the mindset to understand I am in a place where we are the New York Yankees of the NFL. We are the LA Lakers of the NFL. Any preeminent team, that is who we are in the NFL. I have to be able to handle these pressures. I have to be able to turn out the distractions. I have to be able – I mean, like I said last night on our pod, BRF, although there was a lot of distraction in that Chicago Bulls organization, you know, Jerry Krause, everybody talking or what have you, Phil Jackson was able to come in and just put walls over that team. Yes, we have all these distractions. We have a general manager that won't stop running his mouth. We have a guy in the front office that's the owner that won't say anything to the general manager about running his mouth. We always fighting with management, but guess what? We're going to put up walls on this team, and we're going to win regardless. That's what Jerry needs. You don't necessarily need a guy who's going to go blow for blow with his boss like a Bill Parcells, like
or
a
Jimmy
Johnson.
No, but he doesn't need that, champ.
You need somebody that's going to come in and be able to handle that Cowboy pressure. And thus far, he has not found that.
But here's the problem, champ. If he finds that type of head coach, is Jerry Jones going to stay out the way? Because Jerry, my thing is, if you're going to hire somebody, shouldn't you allow them to do their job? Because if you want a head coach to do his job, if you want that type of guy who can handle or neutralize the team, you have to also put your ego, your pride to the side and say, hey, let me find the right type of head coach that can help this team out, that can get everyone together, that is conducive to winning. I've said it before, champ. I don't know how many times I got to say this. Who is the one who's doing press conferences that quick? Jerry. Jerry Jones has his own weekly and radio show. Do you know too many owners who do that type of stuff?
Mm-mm.
Jerry Jones keeps running his mouth. He the owner. He the GM. He the team president. He the ambassador. He the spokesperson. Hell, I mean, he's going to be on the commercials on everything. The Dallas Cowboys, they're worth $10 billion. And it's a lot of distractions in a place like Dallas with the market, America's team, and everything else. And I understand, champ, to the point, if they had the right type of coach, but at the same time, when is Jerry going to step in and say, you know what? I got to let somebody else handle the job. Because I put my foot in my mouth too many times. And I keep doing a lot of things. I keep hiring people. Yes, man. Look at Jason Garrett. Clap. That's what he was known for throughout that time. Despite winning Coach of the Year, as Flash mentioned, what was he known for? Mike McCarthy had some successful seasons, but how did he get the job? You invited him over to the crib for beer and nachos. So if you want to have a type of head coach that can help this team, Jerry, it has to be somebody that is conducive to helping out this team, not just for you. And if he finds that type of coach, and if that coach does well, and shout out to our great girl, Candace Williams. Shout out, Candace. But if he hires the right type of head coach, champ, Jerry's going to get in the way because of the credit, the success. Jerry wants credit. The buck stops with him, as he's often said.
Yeah, but look, like I said last night, and sorry, BRL, because I don't want to, cross content. So I want to apologize to you first. Is it fair for you to want credit? Because the thing is, a lot of these moves don't happen without you. Jimmy Johnson doesn't get a job in the NFL without Jerry Jones. I've always said everybody wants you. If you can mention Jerry Krause and Jerry Jones in the same mouth, Jerry Krause wanted credit just like Jerry Jones. And the thing is, they deserve the credit.
I'm not saying that Jerry did.
Who hired Phil Jackson? It was Jerry Krause.
Right.
Who hired Jimmy Johnson? It was Jerry Jones. You took a lot of risk during that time on these coaches. A lot of players. There was a lot. Look, with I think it was Bill Peterson from Florida State. Him coming from Florida State to the NFL, being a college coach, being one of the first college coaches to come from the NFL to college, he put a lot of bad taste in a lot of guys' mouth because he was the first coach with $1 million contract. Remember, Florida State was a women's school at one point, and he transformed it to a program, to the preeminent program that it is today before Bobby Bowden took over. At one point on Bill Peterson's staff, he had Bill Parcells, Bobby Bowden, and Joe Gibbs on that staff. So when he came to the NFL and started working for Bud Adams at the Houston Oilers, that left a bad taste in a lot of guys' mouths. And guess what? They start asking themselves, do these college guys, when they come to the NFL, do they really know what they're doing? Remember, Lou Holtz was one of those guys who was a college coach that came to the NFL. Nick Saban, the greatest coach of all time in college, he came to the NFL, couldn't hack it. So the thing is, when you put these guys in position in order to be successful, do you deserve a lot of credit? Hell, let's just keep it all the way above. Who do I give the credit for my career in podcasting? I give it to you, do I not?
You do, but what do I always? But what do I always say? Yes, but at the same time, it wasn't just because I liked you, champ. I knew that you had talent. I knew you had potential. I knew you had everything it took in order for you. As I always say, champ, two things could be true, my brother. Yes, Jerry has given people opportunities, but still in all, just like Jerry, when things go well, and he deserves credit for that, but when things don't go well, he's got to get the blame as well. Jerry can't be absolved either. And Jerry, how did he handle the situation with Micah Parsons? By not bringing in his agent.
Right.
I mean, come on, dude. You won't even allow to bring his agent. I mean, David Mugoleta is no slouch of an agent, champ.
No, he was Rock Nation, ain't it? BRF.
Think so.
I'll look it up.
I think it is Rock Nation.
Yeah, he and also too, he represents one of the other players on the Dallas Cowboys roster, as I mentioned, George Pickens. But Jerry, you've been doing your way for so long, and you haven't evolved and gotten ahead with the times, brother. You told me yourself, champ. The definition of insanity: doing something more than once and expecting a different result.
Exactly.
I agree with you. Jerry has done great things. I'm not taking anything away. Jerry has done his part as a GM. Anyone who says Jerry Jones is a horrible GM, they don't know football. But at the same time, Jerry, when you've done the same thing over and over again, and when we've seen you accumulate talent, but you still haven't gotten that far. Yes, we could look at the players, but when we talk about culture, structure, cohesion, you also are responsible for providing that right type of head coach for this team. Was Jason Garrett that type of guy? Was Mike McCarthy that type of guy? Wade Phillips, in my opinion, he did a good enough job during his time with the Dallas Cowboys. You had Bill Parcells, even though you and Bill Parcells butted heads, one of them particularly Terrell Owens. Bill Parcells didn't want anything to do with T.O.
Yeah,
You
Bill
wanted to bring him there
Parcells not the Hollywood type of guy. He's not that guy.
No, he's not. Never been.
No nonsense type of guy.
But we got a lot more to talk about, but I want to let BRF have his share.
Well, as everybody know, if you tune in to the UGSP last night, definitely were some a lot of valid points made. I mean, a lot of good thinking points. I do think Green Bay won the trade because you got a 26-year-old elite pass rusher, a 26. I don't know, Flash. You might have. I don't know.
Perhaps so.
You get a point. I mean, you might have. I don't know. Shout out to the homie Flash. That. So, but yeah, like getting a 26-year-old elite pass rusher, not like scratching the surface, not even really hitting his peak yet, like just scratching the surface of what he can be, and you have to look at it from the perspective of the Dallas Cowboys being able to get 2 first-round picks. Do I feel the full totality of the value they got back from Micah? Nowadays, where we're at in the season, that's a decent haul. But considering we're a week away from starting the season, it's a good haul. Getting 2 first-round draft picks. So I think Dallas has like 4, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. They have 5 next 2 years. They have 5. So they have pieces that they can put together. And Flash, another shout out to Flash. He sent a video out with Cam Newton on First Take. Definitely shout out to Cam. He's one of my favorite sports personalities on YouTube, Twitch, TV. It don't matter. Cam Newton is Cam Newton knows what he's talking about as far as being a football guy. People underestimate how intellectual, how smart Cam Newton really, really is. And especially for someone who's seen the game from his perspective, being an MVP level quarterback, being a guy that's been to a Super Bowl. Dallas has now they have the package to where if they want to go get elite talent in the upcoming drafts, they can, and particularly with the quarterbacks coming out, with the Arch Mannings coming out, with the Drew Allars coming out, with the Carson Becks coming out, with Nico Iamaleava going to be coming out soon. So these quarterbacks that are going to be coming out within these next couple of years, between 26 and 27, they both should be pretty stacked classes. So with the packages that they've accumulated for Micah Parsons, or with Micah Parsons and then all the other draft picks that they have, they can probably now go out and get somebody to possibly lead this team into the future if you're ultimately not sold on Dak Prescott being the future of this organization. Because I think because I want to say, I think we were talking about Flash was talking about that. I think they can opt out of his deal in like 29 or something like that. So they can, if Dallas is going to make an imprint after this trade, like you traded Micah Parsons, you have 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years. If you're going to do something, if you're going to strike, right now the iron's pretty hot, and you need to strike, and you need to go out and get someone, because everybody's immediately saying, "Oh, Arch Manning, Arch Manning, Arch Manning." Now we need to see what Arch Manning does for a full year as a Texas Longhorn starting quarterback. We need to see what he does. But if he is a Manning, and if you follow the game like we do, if your last name is Manning, you're good. Like even Archie with the Saints being as bad as they were in his heyday, he still made himself a relevant, really, really good player. Peyton Manning, my opinion, he's the second greatest quarterback of all time. I know a lot of people beg to differ, but that's my opinion. I think he's the second greatest ever. 2 championships, 5 league MVPs, has broke the touchdown single season record twice. And I mean, just one of, if not the greatest quarterback mind I've ever seen play the game. And then Eli, probably one of the more unsung quarterbacks we've probably ever seen, being a #1 overall draft pick. Was he like the greatest quarterback at his peak? No, he wasn't. But he was a really, really good quarterback for the system he was in. And granted, he had one of the greatest defensive lines in the history of this sport. He's got 2 rings on his finger. He's got 2 rings on his finger. And that says something. So if Arch is going to live up to that last name, you are getting a generational guy. So if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I'm laying it out. And if he's everything like people are saying he is, when it's time to call his number, you might want to do it, especially if you're not going to keep Dak Prescott in the future. But going back to Micah, the reason why I do think ultimately Green Bay wins this deal, and another tidbit that we didn't mention at the beginning when we were talking about the Micah Parsons contract that he got from Green Bay, the extension, 132 of that is guaranteed. 132 million of that is guaranteed dollars. So Micah's taken care of. So you're gonna have a motivated, hungry Micah Parsons coming into your camp, ready to ball and ready to go. And I said this last night. I know some people disagree with me, but hey, it's healthy debate. This is what we do. I think that trade ultimately catapulted the Green Bay Packers as the second best team in the NFC. Some people are going to say Detroit. Some people are going to say the LA Rams. I think it's the Green Bay Packers. I think the Green Bay Packers have a higher ceiling. I think the Green Bay Packers on both sides of the ball have a higher ceiling than both of those teams. I really do.
I still go with the Rams because I know I'm digressing, but we got Puka and Devontae Adams. Matthew Stafford is still one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. Plus the defensive rookie of the year. I keep forgetting his name all the time from Florida State. Yes. So that, and plus Sean McVay as a head coach.
Yes.
So when you have the coaching, when you have the culture there, Green Bay, I believe in. I think Jordan Love will be fine. I like Matt LaFleur, but at the same time, we gotta wait and see with Jordan Love and his health. But with Micah, this is a huge one, BRF, because look at Reggie White, look at Charles Woodson. They've won Defensive Player of the Year awards and they've won Super Bowls for the Green Bay Packers. Micah Parsons in Titletown. He doesn't have to worry about the distractions. He doesn't have to worry about anything else. He can focus on winning that type of championship. Mm-hmm. And even though Dallas has accumulated all those picks, BRF, we've seen them draft talent. Let's not act or pretend as if Jerry has not drafted or accumulated talent. Still in all, why is it that they have still in all? Why is it that they haven't even reached a conference championship game? To your point, every team in the NFC has been to a conference championship game more recently than the Cowboys. Ain't that something?
That to me, to this day, is still one of the craziest stats. Now, I'm gonna pull a flash here. I'm gonna play a little devil's advocate, and I want to argue why I feel it's the Green Bay Packers. The reason why I'm looking at the Green Bay Packers now, Matthew Golden looks every bit the part. Their first round draft pick wide receiver coming out of Texas, he looks every bit the part Like he's about to come in and be the number one and do some things in this league. You have Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed can play his natural position being the slot. The X factor is Christian Watson. But if you're getting healthy Christian Watson, I feel like that ceiling is scary with the Green Bay Packers. That tight end they have, I think it's Croft, underrated player, scored a lot of touchdowns for the Green Bay Packers last year. He's a red zone threat. Josh Jacobs in the top 5 running back conversation in the league this past season. They have very good talent on the offensive side of the ball. And I feel like if that Green Bay wide receiver core is healthy, I'll put them up with anybody. I will put their 3 against any 3 in football. If they're all healthy, I can put their 3 against any of them because they all are fast. They all have deep threat ability. They all have yak ability when they get the ball in their hands. I'll put them up against anybody. And then when you go to the defensive side of the ball, yes, you lose Kenny Clark. He's been in the top 10 defensive tackle conversation for the past 3-4 years. That bookend tandem you have now with Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary can basically freelance. Rashawn Gary is like all the pressure in the world is going off of him because Micah Parsons is drawing all that attention. So Rashawn Gary is going to see a lot more one-on-ones. And Rashawn Gary is a freak athlete in his own right coming out of the University of Michigan. He's a freak athlete in his own right. And then what Micah Parsons, I just feel like he's going to unlock this defense because what great pass rushers do, and this is one thing we have to analyze when it comes to elite great pass rushers, what they allow, most importantly, is for that back 7, and particularly that secondary,
take some pressure off them.
It takes pressure off of them. What an elite pass rusher allows for defense to do to play more freely. You know, if you have an elite pass rusher, you're speeding up a quarterback's clock. You're making them get rid of the ball faster. You're making them step up in the pocket maybe before you want to. You're forcing him out of his spot in the pocket. You're forcing him to go left when he want to go right. And then you force bad throws. And then you have a ball hawk like Xavier McKinney, who's in the conversation as best safety in football. All the interceptions he got last year for the Green Bay Packers. I mean, came in, made an immediate impact.
And plus, it helps out the Packers secondary, considering the fact that they moved on from Jair Alexander, who's now with Baltimore.
Jair Alexander went to the Baltimore Ravens in the offseason. So that's gonna it's gonna take a lot of pressure off of those cornerbacks. Now they know they have a guy in Micah that can, if you're speeding up the quarterback's clock, now you got a shot to maybe get up on these wide receivers, jam them, throw their rhythm off. Micah Parsons, Rashawn Gary, they're forcing them into bad passes. You're getting more interceptions on the corners and the safeties, so that matters. So I feel like Micah Parsons can really, really unlock this defense. That's why I think the Green Bay Packers right now, if the Philadelphia Eagles have the highest ceiling of any NFC team, I think Green Bay is right there with the collection of young talent. Not only the collection of young talent that they have on both sides of the ball, but a guy like Matt LaFleur, who's an underrated head coach, but who's an excellent play caller and an excellent offensive mind in his own right, being able to get his offense in the right plays in the right situations in order to take advantage of defensive mismatches that they're going to be able to see on that side of the ball as well. That's why I personally think the Green Bay Packers, I think, have the second highest ceiling of the NFC teams right now. People don't realize one trade like Micah Parsons, what it can do to a franchise, what it can do to a team, what it can do to a city, how it can jolt them into just like, oh no, they're going for it. Oh, they're going for it. They're really going for a championship now. It could jolt them like into the stratosphere and possibly getting another shot at the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs and putting it on them and maybe beating them this time. Because I think the Green Bay Packers are one of those teams in the NFC. The Philadelphia Eagles, if they're the favorites, I think the Green Bay Packers are one of those teams in the NFC that the Philadelphia Eagles are like, do we really want to deal with them in the playoffs, whether the away team or the whole team? Do we really want to deal with them, considering the problems that Green Bay gave them in the playoffs last year when they weren't healthy? So just picture them if they are healthy with more talent, what Green Bay can do to them. So I really like the outlook of the Green Bay Packers after an acquisition like a Micah Parsons and what it can do for them for 2025. They are a serious. I think they were a threat before, but with Micah Parsons now, they are an even more serious threat.
Go ahead, big fella.
Do you remember? Look, do you think that BRF and PSP, but BRF, you remember this? Remember when Sean Jones, Santana Dotson, and Gilbert Brown was on the Green Bay Packers, right? And they were special in their own, right. You know, the Gravedigger, Gilbert Brown, Sean Jones. He was a hell of a pass rusher with the Houston Oilers. He came over, and Santana Dotson. He was great within his own right. Do you think that Micah Parsons will have that Reggie White-like effect to make them even more special? And can he and Rashawn Gary be like Sean Jones and Reggie White was back in those days and catapult them to a Super Bowl?
I think Micah Parsons isn't the level of player that even Reggie White was at that time, because even though Reggie White had gotten a little long in the tooth then, Reggie White was still arguably the best defensive end in the National Football League at the time when he was acquired by the Green Bay Packers. I think Micah Parsons, though, in this day and age can have a similar effect from the standpoint of not only a guy like Rashawn Gary, but his defensive tackles as well, bringing them along and making them raise their game up, allowing everything to open up. Because Micah Parsons is going to allow all of those, like the pass rushers, the defensive tackles, they are going to get more one-on-ones. It's going to allow more one-on-ones. It's going to allow them more, like you're gonna, like, chances are you're gonna see more stunts. You're gonna see more stunts. You're gonna see a lot. I feel like with Micah Parsons, you're gonna see a lot more creativity with the defensive line as far as how they get to the quarterback. But I think ultimately what it comes down to, more straightforward pass rushes, more straightforward one-on-ones. Micah Parsons is going to allow that for all of the pass rush. And I feel like they got a really, really good shot to do damage, because that's one thing defensive linemen love. When you know you have that one book end who's going to command double teams and chips, those other guys get to see one-on-ones. If they have any amount of handwork and footwork to be able to rush to the quarterback, they're going to feast every week with a guy like Micah Parsons. So believe you me, it might not be the level of a Reggie White, but this day and age, he can have a similar effect as far as raising everybody's level of play up to make them an even better front seven than they have been in the previous couple of years. Micah Parsons, I think, can really unlock this defense.
I think so. I think it's going to be actually a really good season. I think for Green Bay, but for Jerry, man, even with all those draft picks, still, we expect you to get talent. What are you going to do? Because what are you going to do? What plan do you have? Is this your way to try to get yourself a top pick and get yourself a quarterback? Who knows? Yes, you got a bunch of draft picks, but still in all, what is that going to result to you?
What's so funny about having none of those picks is this, and this is why I kept saying before we move on that this is not like the Herschel Walker trade. You already have Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber players on this roster. You have Ty Smith. He's an All-Pro guard right now.
Going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Zach Martin.
I'm talking about the guys who they drafted, who they have now on the team. Yeah. Ty Smith is an all-star line.
Oh, I'm sorry. I confused him with Tyron Smith. I apologize.
Yeah, Ty Smith is a all-star lineman. Dak Prescott, he's made All-Pro. You have, they can come out probably to even be, if they keep them together, they could probably end up being better than Alvin Harper and Michael Irvin was. You have CeeDee Lamb, who almost won a Triple Crown title, and you have the volatile but talented George Pickett. They could be even better than those two, being Alvin Harper and Michael Irvin. Then you have some decent defensive players on this on this roster. Granted, you could rush the passer. You just have to stop the run. So they have Pro Bowl caliber defensive and offensive players on this team. That's how come it's not that of the Herschel Walker trade. When you remember the Herschel Walker trade, you remember this. Ken Norton, who was one of the cornerstones of that defense, during that Herschel Walker trade, he had only, when Jimmy was hired, Jimmy's first year, he was only there for 1 year. Michael Irvin had only been there for 1 year. Troy Aikman had just got drafted. The only holdover from the Tom Landry, the only 2 holdovers really were 3 holdovers from the Tom Landry era during Jimmy Johnson's first couple of years was Nate Newton, who they wasn't sold on at that point because the previous owner had told them don't waste another day on Nate Newton because they thought he had ate himself out of the league. Jim Jeffcoats and Bill Bates. Those are the only 3 holdovers from the Tom Landry era that eventually became bigger stars and cornerstones of that Dallas Cowboy team on down the line when Jimmy got there. But prior to that, the big time players who became stars on that team, they had only been there 1 or 2 years. That was their second year when Jimmy got there. They had to trade in order to get all of the talent that they got, in order to bring them into the talent that they had. 1988 was Tom Landry and Bum Bright's last draft. They drafted Michael Irvin. They drafted Ken Norton Jr. They drafted a lot of those guys. And that second draft, Jimmy Johnson's second draft after they traded for Herschel Walker, that brought the rest of those players in. You already have Pro Bowl caliber players this year. The thing was, before this trade happened, we kept saying the only thing that they needed, if they're able to re-sign Micah Parsons, is to get them defensive linemen in order to help them stop the run. You might need to go down there and look at Desmond Watson really quickly. See if he can get you a couple of snaps in the game. On top of Zadarius Smith. But the thing is, you have Pro Bowl caliber player. This is a playoff caliber team. They could get you at least 10 to 11 games, even this year before they traded Micah Parsons. So they had a chance in order to do some things and make some noise, at least win you 1 playoff game. The problem is, with them compared it to the Herschel Walker trade, the Herschel Walker trade brought all the talent. You already got great talent on this team that can take you places. As much hell as we give Dak Prescott, he's a hell of a quarterback. He's at least top 10. So let's pump the brakes on the Herschel Walker trade. Herschel Walker trade brought all the talent in, and all the talent that they had there when Jimmy first got there, they were young. They had only been in the league 1 year. All of these guys, they're veteran players. They've been around the block once or twice. Like I said, back the year before last, CeeDee Lamb almost won the Triple Crown championship. So let's stop comparing this Micah Parsons trade to the Herschel Walker trade. It's nowhere near like that. They had a chance to make a little bit of noise this year. They had a good draft. They brought in George Pickens. Everybody was talking about they going for it all. They brought in George Pickens. You heard the church. Even I said it. You know, hey, you brought in George Pickens. You're showing the fans that you're trying to go for it all by bringing them not just another second receiver. You brought them another number 1 receiver. So they had a chance to make a lot of noise this year.
Yeah, exactly. A receiver with arguably the best hands in the entire freaking league.
Exactly. So it wasn't like that this team had no talent. They had talent. And they were talking about, and before Micah got traded, people were talking about, if Dak doesn't make it to an NFC championship this year, this may be his last year. Am I lying?
Oh, no, you're not.
But at the end,
so this is nothing like the Herschel Walker trade. Before Micah got traded and before everything got thrown out of the loop a little bit, guess what? They were talking about this team if they don't at least make it to the NFC championship. So this Micah Parsons trade and this the Herschel Walker trade that was made back in 1989 is not the same. Please, people, stop saying that, because they're mutually exclusive. They have nothing to do with each other. Herschel Walker trade brought in the talent. They already had talent on this team that people were talking about if they don't make it to an NFC championship.
Talent has not been the problem with the Dallas Cowboys. The problem has been structure, the coaching, the organization. And like I said, even with all those talent, all those draft picks, bottom line, as long as Jerry Jones is running the show, this is as far as they've gotten. And I think with Jerry, he's maxed out. So that's all I'm going to say regarding that.